Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us at the live stream. I'm Robert Wilonsky. I am the VP of Communications and PR here at Heritage Auctions. But more importantly, the man to my right needs no introduction. I'm going to give him one anyway because it is Neil Gaiman. It is his collection. It is at auction here at Heritage Auctions tomorrow, beginning at 11 o'clock Central. Neil will actually be in attendance. You will actually introduce the auction. You will actually get up every now and then and say a few words about some of the items that are in the auction. It's a privilege, it's a pleasure, it's an honor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's such a thrill to be here. This is so much fun. It's amazing for me seeing all of this art like this laid out.
I was going to say, when we walked in a couple of hours ago, this is the first time you had seen it laid out like this.
It is.
What was it like for you to see it like this? Because it's been either hanging in the house, it's been tucked away somewhere. It's not all been on display like this.
It's been, yeah, I mean, it's all been sort of this kind of stuff. The paintings, the art has all been hanging on walls in my house, but hanging on walls to the point where you sort of sometimes stop noticing it, right, because you've walked past it 1,000 times. Some of the stuff in the display cases actually was either in boxes in the attic or in boxes in the basement. You know, that was stuff that I was like, I barely even noticed that I had. So it's been really fun bringing it out and seeing how excited people have got by it.
Look, I mean, this is an extraordinary event. It's 126 pieces from your collection, everything from original artwork from Sandman, it's books, there's sculptures, there's a Coraline maquette from the movie, there's all kinds of things. We'll spend the next 30 to 45 minutes touring it.
Okay.
But folks can actually come to the auction tomorrow. You'll be here, this will be here. It's available at auction, and it's for very good causes. You want to talk a little bit about that before we get going?
I do. So this all began, actually I want to bring him in earlier if he's wandering on.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, let me bring you in as Exhibit A. Okay, this is
How's the old lead singer doing?
This is Exhibit A. Exhibit A is my friend Jeffrey Notkin. Jeff and I have known each other for years now. We were at school together, we were in short trousers together. He was the drummer in my punk band, or I was the singer in his punk band, depending on which way you look at it.
What was the name of the band?
There were two. It sort of started out as a band called Chaos and then became the X-Execs.
And why did we change the name? Do you remember?
Because we didn't want our guitarist in the band anymore, and we split up, and then we reformed without him.
God, I forgot about that bit. The bit I remember is that there was another English punk band called Chaos, and they looked like really seriously dangerous guys. Yeah, we didn't want them to come and kill us and go, well, it's our name, you've stolen it.
Anyway, so Geoff, despite the fact that he looks like somebody who probably, escaped from jail maybe yesterday, actually is an incredibly well-respected pillar of the community. He's been chairman of the American Space Association. He's a meteorite man. He discovers meteorites and sells them. And a few years ago, Jeffrey said to me, I'm doing an auction with Heritage Auctions.
Right here?
And he said, I'm going to auction off my most beloved meteorites, all the things I've kept for myself over the years. I'm letting them go. And I said, you're mad. Why would you do that? And he said, well, there are charities. There are really good causes. And also, I love the idea of these things going out and making other people happy. And then I watched Geoff do his auction, and I watched how happy he was after, and he didn't regret it. And he was just thrilled to have done good, and thrilled to have got these things out to people. And I started thinking, I've got all of this stuff on my walls, and I've got all this stuff in my basement, and I've got all this stuff in my attic. And also, there are good causes out there. And the causes that I chose, I wanted to do stuff that would look after old comics people and comics people who are on hard times, and also writers and creators on hard times. So portion of this is going to go to the Authors League Fund, which looks after authors who are having trouble. Some of it is going to go to the Hero Initiative, which looks after comics people.
They pay their medical bills, they pay all the kind of things that they need to survive.
And the other part of it that really was what decided me on it was, for the last 40 years, I've been doing stuff in comics. And I know a lot of comics artists. And it has seemed to me increasingly wrong and unfair that as the prices for original comics art go up and up, the artists never see anything.
Right.
And in many European countries now, artists actually get a royalty. The original artist gets a royalty from auctions and things. And I thought, wouldn't it be good to just be able to give money back to artists and normalize the idea that yes, you bought this piece of art from this artist for $90 in 1992 and you just sold it for $200,000. All that artist ever saw was $90.
Right.
And maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to send them something. And so that, for me, those things really were what solidified the idea of, okay, I'm going to do an auction. I'm going to try and get that idea out to society.
You're a mensch.
Well, I love the artists I've got to work with over the years, and I'm incredibly lucky, and I've been lucky, and lots of my stuff has been turned into film and television, and I have at least 3 or 4 different careers creating different stuff, and it's all good.
Let's show off some of the stuff.
Let's show them some of the This,
Gentlemen,
this was in my bedroom for years. Mike Dringenberg painted it. He did it for Night Flight Comics in Salt Lake City in, I think, 1990. Oh, it says 90.
It's the only time it's been seen publicly.
Well, I don't even think they saw it publicly then.
Yeah.
He did it as a piece of art for reproduction, and it said Neil Gaiman, Mike Dringenberg doing a signing, Night Flight Comics. And he gave me the original. And I've always looked at this and gone, this for me has been the quintessential, most perfect piece of Sandman art.
Why? Why quintessential?
I think Mike Dringenberg was always the ultimate Morpheus artist.
Yeah.
He took what Sam Keith did, he added his own gothic flavor to it, played with the hair, played with the character, and suddenly this was Morpheus, it really was. And I think there's a level on which, Mike's Morpheus, just like Mike's death, and Mike co-created death, absolutely, there's nothing else like them. And that for me, here's Morpheus just being nice to a cat. And you go, this is somebody who isn't nice to anybody. In the entire 75 issues of Sandman, he's barely nice, you barely see him touch anybody. And yet you can really see him just being nice to a cat. And
You've got the Matt Wagner beneath it?
underneath it, Matt does a fabulous Sandman here. It's really beautiful, and it's, I think he's using sort of oil pastels and spatter, and this is it's kind of the opposite, because this is war Morpheus.
Right.
This is the war helm. This is danger.
Well, there's so many iterations, right, of Morpheus.
Oh, yeah.
Delirium. I mean, there's so many.
Here we've got, we did a whole pin-up gallery, and this is John J. Muth, featured from the pin-up gallery of Morpheus and Pigeons. John J. Muth is such an evocative, glorious artist, and it's just such an amazing piece of black and white art. I love it so much. Yoshitaka Amano, famous Japanese artist, worked with me on The Dream Hunters, and we did a signed, he did a print and gave me an artist proof of it. It's just this beautiful, haunting Morpheus and Matthew, or whichever raven that happened to be. And then he also gave me his preliminary sketch for the cover of the Dream Hunters. And it's just this glorious, amazing pencil sketch. The dark secret, of course, of this is that Mr. Armano draws on every surface he possibly can, which normally means that I'm pretty sure there's yet another sketch for the cover on the other side of this piece of paper, but you can sort of only show one at a time.
I gotta say, this is one of my favorite pieces in
I
all
know. So Michael Zulli is one of my favorite artists. Michael Zulli is so imaginative. He's a painter, he's a genius, and he painted this for me. And it's two paintings that are one painting. You have to hang them together. This stuff here is actually copper, little bits of copper that are on, pushing them back into place, bumped out. It's little bits of actual metallic copper, and it's a Morpheus, it's a Sandman, and it's like a strange Mucha-esque symbolist piece of magic done in two pieces of art that become one.
We were talking a little bit before this about how one of the reasons you wanted to do this was you wanted to also show off Michael's work.
I really did. I've been collecting Michael Zulli art now since 1989.
There's some more over here. We can walk around. I mean, there's.
Yeah, let's take a look at some. This was the very first piece of art, I think, from 1990 that Michael ever gave me, and it's a painting of dream and death. They almost sort of come out of the clouds, create strange faces. It's this amazing sort of mixed media thing, and it's a style that I've never seen Michael use.
I was going to ask about that.
You know, he's not. People imagine that they know what Michael Zulli does, and yet you look at that. If we launch
right
from there, something like that, which is Michael's.
These two pieces are Michael's.
Michael's reinterpretation of the original "I will show you fear, I will show you terror in a handful of dust" painting, and we did this one for. That was Morpheus facing that way, so we did Daniel facing this way for the wake. This painting, this page here is pencil drawing, and I had always loved Michael's pencils and was continuously frustrated by what happened when you would team Michael up with an inker, because somehow something would always get lost. And I had this idea that maybe, mid-90s, maybe technology had come far enough that we could literally just shoot from pencils.
Yeah.
And so Michael did a page in pencils. I described the page to him of the bird coming, dropping a rose for death, and flying away. As it actually turned out, when I wrote the issue, there wasn't enough room to use this page. So I rewrote it into a half-page scene, and the other half is Desire. But what this was done for was as a giant test. And we ran it through all of the tests, and we decided that yes, you could color, yes, you could letter, yes, we could pull it off. And this was one of the very first books ever shot from pencils. Whereas if you come over here, this is a drawing that Michael Zulli did as a gift for me, which has the strangest story, I think, of any piece of art I've ever had, because Michael gave it to me. He drew it in 1994, I imagine he gave it to me in 1994. Somehow, the envelope it was in never got opened. Or if it got opened, the art never got seen. All I know is somewhere in about 2004, 10 years later, I was looking for an envelope to put some art in. And I went down into my basement. There were some envelopes stacked up, big cardboard envelopes stacked up against the wall. I grabbed one to put some art in and went, hang on, this hasn't been opened. Opened it, looked in, and discovered this, which I'd never seen before. So I did the only...
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I did the only logical thing, and I sent it to DC Comics and said, I think we should make this a poster. And they looked at it and said, we think we should make this a poster. So it actually became a poster. DC Comics brought this out. It was a hugely popular.
But what is it like? What was your reaction when you opened the envelope and realized what it was?
I was completely dumbfounded. I just remember phoning Michael and saying, you did a piece of art for me about 10 years ago and I never said thank you, did I? And he's like, no. And I said, I just found that art.
Was he relieved that A, you found it, and B, you thanked him?
I think I don't know. Michael is a gentle, wonderful soul, and he never actually told me off for, the mystery. I think he worried that it hadn't arrived.
Yeah.
And it must have simply arrived while I was, it probably arrived while I was out of the country. Somebody put it aside for me. I came back and it never came back. But this is so beautiful. I had it framed and I'm still, that was one of the pieces where I looked at it and went, am I going to let you go? And I thought, yes, I am, because again, I want to show people the range of Michael's work,
right.
What he does, how good he is. Over here, though, we have something that's kind of astonishing. It's a Charles Vess painted and drawn page.
I love walking around and looking at Charles's work. I've never seen it up close. I've never seen it in person. It's just breathtaking.
Well, this is particularly breathtaking because this is half painted. Mm-hmm. And then it's black and white, where it was going to be flat colored. So the idea was that anything from the actual Tempest
right.
was painted by Charles, and anything from the story was in black and white. And I had the lettering photocopied onto clear acetate and put that over, just because I went, I want people to be able to read this and get context on it. Given that this was Sandman 75, the last ever Sandman.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it difficult when it came time to put this together to let this piece go because of the issue in which it appeared? Because somebody's going to own this and it's going to say, for Neil, a true tale spinner. It's going to be signed by him. I mean, this is a piece of you.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But there's part of me that just feels like I don't get to... You never get to own art. You get to look after it.
You are a temporary custodian.
You're a custodian. I'm getting to take care of it. Over here is another to Neil piece.
Yes.
To Neil, reality is a curious friend, love Jill. Jill Thompson gave me this page, which was one of my very favorite pages in the whole of Brief Lives. It's not showy, it's not fancy, it's just destruction talking with a background of stars about things being created, things being destroyed, what reality is. And I think if I ever got anything right as a writer, I got that right. And if I was ever really writing something for Jill, it was that. And I love that page is going to go out there because it's magical. It's got Morpheus on it, it's got Delirium on it, and it has some fabulous destruction stuff on it.
So speaking of signed Jill piece, I'm going to go right there.
Okay.
Because this is a piece that I think is a great Beatles piece as much as it is by Jill,
Yep.
for you,
Yep.
of a character, of a friend.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
The idea of, back when we were doing Brief Lives together, I just remember at some point in there saying, we're going to let Delirium be Tori Amos for a few pages. And she was. People think Tori inspired Delirium, and she didn't really, but Delirium was part of. I definitely stole things that Tori would say to me and gave them to Delirium. And I just think this is so beautiful, the Starry Night, the Joel Thompson watercolor, and she says, may our friendship never be brief, love Joel, and I hope our friendship goes on for decades yet.
see, that's a piece. And again, this auction begins tomorrow at 11 o'clock here at heritageha.com. When people buy this, what do you want them to take from it? Because this is so much a piece of you, of your relationship with Jill, with Tori, and the readers. I mean, this is a definitive piece, even though it was done,
I feel like I've looked at this piece every day since 1993. I've looked at it for 31 years and loved it.
Yeah.
Every time. And I want people to take joy. I want them to take that joy. I hope it goes to a Tori Amos fan. I hope it goes to a Delirium fan. I hope it goes to a Jill Thompson fan. I hope it goes to a Neil Gaiman fan. And I hope that it's loved. For me, the saddest thing would be to hear that some of these pieces have gone into vaults. I want them on walls. Look at this. Talking about amazing Michael Zulli pieces. This one here, it's a piece of original art he did for a painting, for a poem that I did called In Religorum. And we did it as a print. And it is absolutely, I think, just so stunning. The eyes of St. Oran as he rose from the death. St. Oran is one of the very few stories in which one saint gets murdered by another saint and then gets to come back from the dead, having already been murdered once. And he rises from the dead and says, hell is not what you imagine, neither is heaven. I've had this amazing revelation. So they kill him again, just to shut him up. And there's so much power and so much madness. And I love the fact that this piece feels like it takes place on the intersection of comics and fine art.
Well, I mean, that's what I find about so much of the works in this auction, your stuff, is the fact that it does truly intersect. Charles Best,
Isn't that amazing?
This could be in a museum as well as in...
It's a Charles Vest piece from Stardust.
Oh my God, it's an extraordinary favorite of mine.
It's amazing. It is so beautiful. And over here we have two David Keane pages. One from Black Orchid 2, one from Black Orchid 3, somewhere around there. And we also have we've got a page from the Books of Magic. And it's Tim Hunter and Yo-Yo the Owl and Master Redlaw and Master Leverett, if I remember their names correctly, and the hedgehog and the hare just arguing.
What I love about this auction and what I love about this experience is walking through your career with you. That's just kind of an amazing thing, Neil.
So one of the weird things about this is we made a conscious decision right at the very beginning. Because I went, well, I've also got all of this art, I've got this stuff. And I went, let's just make it Neil Gaiman stuff. Let's just make it stuff that is personal to me. And yet, I decided to put this piece in.
Why? Let's talk about this, Charles Addams. It was a Cosmopolitan in 1956.
So when I was 6 years old, my next door neighbor had a book called The Penguin Charles Addams. And it was cartoons, and I had no idea any of them were meant to be funny. I thought they were stories. I read these Charles Addams cartoons over and over again, normally not quite understanding them, but loving the mind. And I think I love this piece so much because it does that thing to my head that Charles Addams did to me when I was 6. It's like, okay, it's about suburbia. Here we have a gentleman with 2 faces. Here we have a tiny little guy, a round guy, a spider guy, and they're all bidding farewell to identical, or more or less identical wives and children. And I feel like whatever the story is hovering on the edge. And since this piece, that was the first ever piece of Charles Addams art I bought, and now I'm a picky collector. I now have about 4 pieces of Charles Addams art, and I love them all so much, and I decided it was time to throw one back.
Did you ever think about completing that story? Because there's something about, I want to know what's happening in that narrative.
So many stories you think about completing. Here's some more wonderful Michael Zulli. I love this painting of death, holding pink flowers. Michael did a thing saying, in death's garden all the flowers are blue, and yet there are some red ones. Michael did, there was a point where Michael was meant to have been painting Neverwhere, and that wound up not happening, but he gave me the covers.
Oh, wow.
The incomplete covers at the time. This was Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandermeer. And we have an Angel Islington, and round there we have a door. And over here, we have Hob Gadling. I have loved the Sandman show, how popular Hob has become as a character. He's become somebody that people love. And of course, Michael was the very first artist ever to draw Hob. Michael drew the first ever Sandman story, Men of Good Fortune, with Hob Gadling in it. That's his painting. Round here we have another Death. In Death's garden all the flowers are blue. We have Death and Hob with Morpheus serving them wine. And we have the Alice Cooper illustration that Michael originally did for Last Temptation 3 that became the cover to the Dark Horse edition of The Last Temptation. As Michael really just reduced Alice to pure iconography. It's all in the eyes. The one project that Michael and I never got to finish, but we still dream about finishing, is our Sweeney Todd. And that was the cover for the Sweeney Todd Penny Dreadful that Michael did in 1992. And unfortunately, Taboo magazine stopped publishing, so we did the Penny Dreadful. We did the first episode, and then never got to finish.
I want to do
this. I should say, is kind of amazing. One of the things that I almost never did in Sandman was double-page spreads. I was so conscious of how much story I had to tell and how few pages I had, that there were almost no double-page spreads. And even if there were double-page spreads, I was normally doing a lot in them. And then there was this one, Sandman 53, and I knew that in order for it to work, you had to open the page and get a double-page spread of a Michael Zulli and Dick Giordano Sea Serpent. And there's the ship, and there's the Sea Serpent, and the sense of scale on this piece of art is so glorious. It was hanging up in my front hall for 32 years, and I decided to let it out into the world.
All right. I promise folks we keep it a little tight, but I wanted to ask you about these because when you and I talked a few weeks ago, Swamp Thing is what brought you back to comics.
Alan Moore's Swamp Thing brought me back to comics. Bernie Wrightson and Len Wein's Swamp Thing was what told me as a 10 or 11 year old that comics could be art.
Right.
Alan brought me back, and the first time I had any money at all as a journalist, and I was a journalist with two very small kids, so that really was, money was so tight. But I remember selling, the very first comics stuff that I sold, and I had a little bit of money. I went down to Comics Showcase in Neal Street, and I bought this. It's a Swamp Thing page with Dead Man, showing the grazing poltergeists, drawn by the genius Steve Bissett and the genius John Toddleben. And then the next time I had money, I went back and I bought this. And again, Steve Bissett and John Toddleben, and it's the Monkey King, and it's the Demon.
Right.
And so for me, I got the Demon and I got Dead Man, these two characters that I had loved so much as a boy, these DC horror characters, and here they were. And that was so important. This was a beautiful gift from Rick Veitch. It's Rick and Tom's cover for Swamp Thing 66. I was meant to have written Swamp Thing after Rick, but Rick resigned because of censorship, and I resigned with him.
Right. So speaking of pieces you bought,
Yes.
I want to talk about the Mobius. This shows
Okay.
Mobius.
Yes.
This is because many of these pieces were gifted to you. They were from your works. This is a character you created, and yet it has a great story that led to you actually buying it.
Well, I have loved Mobius since I was a boy at school with Geoff Notkin, who we saw earlier, and I hope we'll see again. We had a French exchange. We were sent across to Paris, and it was very soon after Metal Hurlant had started publication. And I spent all of the money that I was meant to be spending on seeing tourist sites and educational things and going to the Louvre. I bought my copies of Metal Hurlant, and I was in love with Mobius. I just thought the art was so exquisite. And in 1994, we did a gallery of dreams, and the one artist that I asked DC to see if they could get, and he said yes, was Mobius, was Jean Giraud, and he did this amazing death for us.
You tried to get him to do several stories as well,
Well,
right?
that was later.
Yeah.
This was the one thing that he did for us. As far as I know, it's the only piece of Sandman work he ever did. We did make it a poster. When it's a poster, it was huge. The reality is it's just this glorious, perfect little thing of her standing on something that's incredibly disturbing. And there was briefly a gallery of comics art, the 4-color images gallery, and I bought this from them. It was, one of the very few things I've ever bought,
Right.
and very few Sandman things. And I just thought I have to have that, and I did, and I love it so much. This, on the other hand, was a gift.
So I want to talk, many people, in fact, friends of mine who are devotees of yours, did not know that you had any hand in anything to do with Watchmen.
Well, those people should have read the dedication more carefully, because the dedication of Watchmen is to Neil Gaiman, Pat Mills, and Mike Leigh. And we were all, and they dedicated it to us because we did things for them.
Right.
It wasn't just a random dedication. So one of the things that I'm most thrilled and honored by is that Watchmen is dedicated to me. I'm a third of the dedicatees. And as a thank you, Dave and Alan, signed by Dave, signed by Alan, and they gave me this piece of art. And Dave had asked what I wanted. He said, if you could have a page from Watchmen, what would you like? And I said I would like the dream. I want Night Owl's dream. It's a 17-panel page. It has, famously, most of the art in Watchmen is 9-panel.
Right.
This has 17. It has the iconic kissing skeletons, which I've seen as a tattoo. I've seen it as T-shirts. I've blown up everywhere. And the fact that it's a dream, I don't know, something about this is wonderful. And also, of course, it came with the original color guide, which this is John Higgins doing the flat color guide, so it comes with it.
Let's walk over this way, because there's a few things that we want to show some folks that aren't hanging on the wall. And I know you wanted to talk about a few of them. Before, let's look at the bed song, because this is extraordinary. Then we'll go look at Coraline, and then we'll
Absolutely.
begin to wrap things up here in a moment. But this is the case for the bed song.
Okay, so the bed song, we did a very, very limited edition. 159 of these were made. And photographs by Kyle Cassidy, essays by me and Kyle, lyrics by Amanda Palmer. And it was huge. It was this thing of photographs, fine art photographs, and they are utterly gorgeous, of couples in beds. There's Samuel R. Delaney, Chip Delaney. And it's and I loved, here we go. I loved the book, I loved making the book. And we did the book in these boxes. They only ever went to a few of the people who supported Amanda's Kickstarter. There's me, Amanda, a long time ago. And I think right at the very, very back, there's somewhat more naked, me and Amanda. That may have been the single scariest thing I've ever done.
Well, I'll tell you this, what I love most about this auction is that it is the only place I know of where you can buy naked photos of you. So that
It is, yes, if you need a naked photo of me, there is one in there.
All right, so before we delve over here, I want to look at, because I have to say,
I want to bring this, and I also want to bring Geoff.
Yeah, Geoff, come back over here.
Jeffrey, come and see this.
What have we got? Oh, it's so great to see her in real life.
So that is Coraline. She acted. She was a professional. She was in the movie, and as was the cat. And you can see everything in here is fully posable. People made, the amount of craftspeople involved in making her is astonishing. From the wire, from the skeleton up, covering it with stuff, painting it, making clothes, damaging the clothes. Her face comes off so that you can move the eyes and replace things. The cat has movable whiskers and everything. It's every little detail is there. She's absolutely astonishing. And she's been in my bedroom for 15 years. And I finally thought, Coraline has become such a phenomenon in the world. I think I should let her go and just bring joy to somebody. But I also, over here, I just wanted to show these guys. This was a test paint for Miss Forcible. And over here are two different Miss Spinks. Somewhere out there are Miss Spink collectors. And this is painted hair. this is actually woolen hair. I think they were trying out different colors. Neither of these two color schemes are the ones they adopted, although that actually was.
Are you a cat person? I can't remember.
I'm a cat person and
But
a dog person.
You have dogs. You have a dog now.
I have a dog now. I have a ridiculously enormous dog.
A wolf. Nearly.
He's not technically a wolf.
Technically.
He just looks like a wolf. And for years, I had. It got hard when I became a dog person initially by picking up a dog from the side of the road who was going to wander under the freeway, because then I had to mark the house cat and dog areas. And the dog thought that it was to stop him getting into the cat areas and killing the cats, and I knew it was just to save his eyesight, his nose, and probably his ears. We have a bunch of stuff that came out back when Coraline came out that you can't find anywhere anymore. And I just love the fact that there is this stuff, and again, it'll make people happy. Coraline puzzle, Coraline, these lovely little figurines, and even down here, these Save Us Coraline marbles. Although I think they weren't movied. They came out in 2002 when the book came out.
I have to show you, I have to ask you about my favorite thing. I know we're short on time.
I know. What
but
is your
I
favorite thing?
I have to do this. It's so important to me because these are amazing. And they absolutely take me back to our childhood. This is why we got in so much trouble when we were kids, because this is what we were doing at the back of French class. And I just love these. Or is this all your work? Look how cute. Are they all your sketches?
They're all my sketches. So what I would do.
Look, it's like the birth of Sandman
So what I
imagery
would do
here.
at the beginning of when I write a comic. This is Season of Mist Part 6. 27, for mature readers only, in which the disposition of hell is decided, a reunion happily ever after. And I turn it over and I number all of the pages. I take 8 pieces of paper, I fold them in, and then I'm basically just sketching out for myself the pacing of the story.
They're so good. Look at that.
And I'm just drawing. Nobody is ever meant to see these.
Well, they weren't meant to see them
me.
in school either.
That's true.
Do you remember the name of our French teacher? Do you remember when your Howard the Duck #2 was torn up at school? We were not allowed to take comic books to school. It was in the school rules. And you had a Howard the Duck #2 that was torn up by that woodworking teacher.
Can we talk about the Groucho Marx?
Yes, I have no idea why. Groucho Marx. Well, actually, so what I've done, you see, is that's page. This is page 17. That's page 18. And one of the things that I'm doing these books for is so I know where the ad page is. So that is an ad page. So I've just decided to draw Groucho Marx on it. Meanwhile, here's Morpheus capturing Azazel in a bowl and putting him back in the darkness, and all of our various creatures. And again, an ad page. So I'm making notes myself. Order of goodbyes, order, chaos, Lord Susano, Merkin and Corazon, Egyptian, Norse, fairy, angels, nada, ends. And making little notes to myself. And that 100015336 was my CompuServe ID.
There's a bit of history.
Yes.
I love this. No, it is a man with wings. The angel. And look how expressive your faces are. We never get to see this stuff. Well, not for a long time.
No, I don't really draw pretty much anymore, except these are when I draw. That was 1602. So this was my little. And again, even the artist never sees these.
Well, you clearly wouldn't want to influence them in any possible way.
Well, you kind of wouldn't really, but it gives me the beats. It gives me, I'm doing a lot on this one. It looks like I'm doing a lot of writing on here to tell me how it needs to work,
right.
What the pacing is, and then little notes for myself. And again, here's pages 1 to 30. And I have a feeling that must have been Act 1. Yes, it's the first one, because originally they were meant to be 30 pages, and then we took them down, I think, to 22 pages.
Another comment about our childhood, if I may.
Yes.
When we were kids, we used to lament the fact, even then you cared, we would talk about how, the creators of such and such famous comic book were never compensated. And now you're in a position to change that. I mean, you're not just talking about how things are unjust. You're actually making not just the contribution of funds, which is a wonderful thing, but also drawing attention to this issue. And I'm just really proud of you. It's really moving.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's much more, for me, this is so much more about the idea of doing this than it is about the funds. The funds will help some artists, it'll be great. But if I can get the idea across, if I can normalize the idea for people that this is what you do, that there's nothing wrong and nothing weird about looking after artists, sending, if you sell a piece of art for, okay, there's the Morpheus, Dr. D standing on Morpheus's hand, and the tragedy of this is actually tragic. Because I'm pacing this out so carefully, I think I know exactly what I'm doing. I put it on page 19 because that's where the ads have thrown the thing, and then they'll throw it back somewhere in here, but I think, there we go, they throw back on page 20, opposite page 21. And the problem that I will then come into for the rest of my life is that because of that ad page, I then have to completely rework the actual graphic novel books, which we had no idea when I did 7 these would ever be collected in any way, because page 19 is normally a right-hand page, not a left-hand page, so I had to do stuff to...
How often can you, look, we've seen so many different iterations of Morpheus, to see your hand is an incredible experience, to see your rendition of, your version of.
I just look at my version of Morpheus and go, I wish I could draw.
All right, look.
Lots 10, 11, and 12, people.
Before we wrap this up, there's 2 things that
I wanted
to pull out.
We've got so many amazing things. Snowglass Apples, Dreamhaven Press did this. I just wanted to say, this is the only thing of mine, as far as I know, that has ever been counterfeited and bootlegged. They were collectible, and somebody went, hang on, why don't we just print some? And so they were on grey paper, and it's the only thing I've ever sometimes refused to sign, although I kept thinking I should do that thing of signing it, J.R.R. Tolkien or Charles Dickens or whatever.
You've made it when you're counterfeited. That's got to be it, right?
But that is the real one, because it's a beautiful brown. This is a book called Melinda, and it's one of the least known books I've ever done. It's a poem I wrote. It's illustrated by an astonishing Polish artist named Dagmara Matuszak, whose work I loved. Published in 2004, and I got a couple of copies.
Oh, I love that.
In the auction.
The artwork on the envelope.
Well, all of her art is just so good and so powerful. And
there's your dog.
That's my dog before I ever met my dog as well, which is really weird. And she's 7, but she's seen it all. She's lived in heating pipes and vents and run with dogs and battled wolves. She's learned it makes a lot of sense to build yourself a nest.
I like that little detail in there, the fish.
And I just realized I hadn't signed this, so I'm going to sign it now.
All right, bidders, this is the real deal.
There we go. So there is a Melinda.
Beautiful.
Freshly signed.
Freshly signed.
Just in time for tomorrow's auction.
We'll let that dry. And there's so much amazing stuff we haven't talked about. We've got glorious things. What can I point to? Over here, we're in statue land. This is the number 10 of, I think, 1800. They did 1800. This was like the first Randy Bowen statue, based on Kelly Jones, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful.
I love the adult collector. Little, very small
Adult collector. Over here, the Sandman Overture patina statue, which was, I think they did exactly 100 of them. And they are bronze, they are heavy. You could kill a burglar with one of these Sandman Overture statues. If, obviously, you need to kill a burglar, that would be my advice. The statue, there's the 10th anniversary statue, all of these different ones. And over here at the back, the Sandman Sand Globe. I think that's probably, in my estimation, the single ugliest piece of Sandman merchandise ever produced. There was nothing ever quite as bad as the Sandman Sand Globe. It was a lovely idea. It did not work. You put him in a snow globe.
So when you buy it, you now have that to go with it.
Yeah, ultra collectible.
You have,
Right.
it's ultra collectible.
You have Neil's
It
antithesis of an endorsement.
It is the worst.
Yeah.
And here is a wonderful little thing that Jill did, of Dream and of Death as the young endless, and she made them as if it were a frame from an animated movie that never quite got made. It's beautiful. It's so silly.
You know that Neil's in the business because everything is mint in box, unopened, just the way you dream of.
I love the fact that he's in the business, because we were going to wrap this up 15 minutes ago, and we were going to end it with Neil signing, but Neil insisted on going longer because he wanted to show off every single thing in the auction.
There's so
We
much
actually didn't
great
show off
stuff.
everything. You have
We
awards
have-
in the auction,
There's awards in the auction. There's books in the auction. We haven't really talked about the books.
but if you go to ha.com, you can see all of it, all 126 pieces. You can bid right now. You can bid tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. If you're in Dallas, you can come to Heritage Headquarters. You will be here. You will introduce the auction. You will speak about pieces during the auction. It
I
will be an
will
event.
tell strange anecdotes about things.
It's going to be a remarkable event.
And honestly, if anything, everything. Today I signed authenticity certificates
You did.
for absolutely
126.
everything. So everybody will get a certificate.
I witnessed it. That was all. I was very impressed by the care.
It
put
took
into
him
this.
35 seconds.
No, I bet it took a lot longer to make the
Oh, it did,
certificates.
than it did for him to sign them. He's a professional. All right, so thank you everybody for joining us. You'll be able to watch this over and over again. It'll be on YouTube in a few minutes, Facebook and so forth. But more importantly, 11 o'clock tomorrow here at Heritage or on ha.com, the Neil Gaiman collection, for charity, for artists, for a good cause, from a mensch, one of the greatest people I know, one of my favorite writers, just one of my favorite people. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Jeffrey.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.